Good evening, everyone, to this exciting session of LitFestx with Josh Hinds. Josh is a life change strategist and a speaker and author. Through his work, Josh teaches people the essential life skills necessary to live by choice over chance. I think that's a very powerful message, Josh. And it'll be good to hear from you even before I delve into your book, which is called It's Your Life, Live Big. But tell us about your work when you say providing essential life skills necessary to live by choice over chance.
Sure. Well, it's great to be here with everybody, and I appreciate the opportunity to share. Um, I think it's such a big question. I think one of the reasons most people don't, when they look at their lives, they look around and they see shortcomings or things that haven't really come to pass, maybe like they would like. I think a lot of this comes down to not because they necessarily lack the skills or they're not the type of person that can accomplish that. A lot of times it really gets down to the fact that they haven't broken things down and really been what I like to call intentional about their day. In other words, most of us, I hate to say it, but when we wake up, we kind of sort of live in reactionary mode. Instead of saying, okay, I'll happen in my life this, it's a career path, or maybe it's you want to be more involved with your family. It really doesn't matter specifically what it is, but whatever it is, most of us, instead of doing those daily actions, and that can be something as simple as just making a point to write out actions that will get you to those steps and make those things happen, or they can be as involved as some of the things I talk about in the book, which are a much more advanced goal setting plan, or but it all goes back to being, instead of just hoping things work out, most happenstance. And it's not that we necessarily do that on purpose. It's just the bottom line is things are going to happen whether we plan for them or not. And that's not to say we can control, but the bottom line is if we don't plan, then we know what's going to happen. We're gonna live according to somebody else's plan, or just whatever kind of goes our way. Plan and strategy, getting specific about what you want, not just big ideas like oh, I want to own a business. Well, that's wonderful, but there are a lot of little details that have to go in. I look at this great event that you're putting on, and that I'm thankful to be a part of. So many details went in it. It wasn't like you just said, hey, I want to have these folks come and share and create value for this audience. I mean, so many details went into it. And that's really what I'm talking about. We can live our lives. We can't control everything, but there are things that we can control. And if we can get a handle on those things, we can see a lot more positive results occur than might otherwise. So I kind of went off on a tangent there, but hopefully made sense.
No, absolutely. Absolutely makes a lot of sense, Josh. So tell us about your new book, It's Your Life, Live Big.
Sure. So the book, It's Your Life, Live Big, the title, for years I've through the work I do with my website and my newsletter that I offer, I've just kind of, I started signing it years ago, just kind of signing off as my signature, It's Your Life, Live Big. And to be honest with you, it was really a reminder to myself that, just to basically do that, myself, starting with myself. And so then as a result, it kind of, it's about 17 different lessons worth of important things, everything from just doing, goal setting, living intentionally, the power of kindness, all these different things that I've seen make a difference in my own life and the lives of the people I work with. And so we broke it down into those chapters, and I give all the credit to the publisher. They did a great job of really making it happen. And that's pretty much what it is. I always like to say, the book really is just, how to live a more intentional life. And I use that word intentional, and sometimes it sounds like a buzzword, but really it just gets down to, in my opinion, living big I talked about before, is just about living by choice over chance more often than not. That's not to say we hit it 100% of the time. Everybody gets in that kind of reactionary mode. But what we want to try to do, and what really makes a big difference, I believe, is when we just try not to stay there. Just when we recognize it, say, hey, let me just try this, or let me see what happens if I put a little emphasis here in my day. Or, maybe you're having just to get kind of rah-rah on everybody. Maybe you're feeling terrible and you say, you know what, I'm just going to smile at the next 5 people. Something so simple, but it would blow your mind what you take in that little action, how it can play out throughout your day. Sometimes it's something as simple as that. Or maybe somebody, you smile at the next 3 people and they just get away from you. But that's okay. At least you tried to kind of shift you tried to make a little shift, and you got to get a different result.
So, since how long have you been sort of working in the area of personal development, and how did it all begin?
Oh God, that's a long story. I've actually, what happened was I was working in a different business in 95, 96, 1995, 96, and I just had registered a domain name back then, and then kind of as a result, I'd always been interested in personal development, really just a reader of books and of works, and so I started a little website, and initially I just started sharing other people's resources. It really wasn't anything fancy at all. And then I'm going to date myself here, but before people used Google, they all used the Yahoo directory. It wasn't even a search like we know it. It was just a human directory. And basically it took off. And from there, the website ended up just literally going from a little project to millions of people visiting it. And then so everything I do now is really an offshoot of that. I was sharing other people's stuff and just said, hey, maybe I've got something that might resonate with somebody. So I just started writing. Didn't really have any professional experience writing. Certainly wasn't a journalism major or anything like that. But I just kind of wrote what I wanted to share, and years later it's spawned off to books and different things like that, and working with people. But how that happened a long time.
Right. And at what point in time did you realize that this passion and hobby, if you call it, for understanding personal development and for helping people develop themselves, what point in time did you realize that this could become, your business, your profession?
That's a good point. Good question. I would say it sort of just merged. I don't know the exact point. Like I said, for the longest time, and still to this day, the focus, certainly earn a living from it, obviously, but the focus is always really on trying to create value, and that's another word we always hear people throw around, but just trying to create a resource that people can appreciate and learn from and use in their own life. And so I don't think there was ever a point where I said, okay, I've got to stop focusing here to do this. They just sort of merged. One big, sort of aha, hey, there's more to it than just a side project time was literally when I hit that time where it got listed in the Yahoo directory. At the time, the Yahoo directory, it was to kind of put it in context for people, it were human beings. That it wasn't a search algorithm, it was actually people who chose what got in there. And so in the self-improvement section at the time, there were maybe, when I got in, there were probably about 7 or 8 people. And then it kind of grew to about 20, maybe 30 listings. Sites were all, and then of course, that kind of went away when search, as we know it, took over. But anyway, I would say it was about that time, because there were just tremendous amounts of people that started visiting and using the site. And then as a result of that, I said, hey, maybe it's not, maybe I need to see if I can, kind of share my own thoughts and share my own, and a lot of it initially, but life is one of those things. and growing through it is something that you really want to do, or instead of like, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to try this when I get to this point, or when I get this knowledge, or when somebody gives me permission to do this, or I get this degree that says I can do this, or this colleague says it's okay to go after this. I found that a lot of times there really is no sort of permission. You try it, you grow into it, and then all of a sudden after it works or it doesn't work, people kind of look around and say, hey, that's kind of cool that you were able to do that. But really the only thing that made it possible was just trying it, just giving it a shot and learning along the way. Made just so many mistakes along the way, but some things have worked out as well. So, and I think that's a lesson we can all take, we should all kind of apply.
Right. In your work, you have talked about, the importance of defining success and then measuring it. So tell us a little bit about, how do you go about this process of defining success, and, what are the tools or methods to measure it?
Okay, I think there's a lot of different ways to measure it. I think one of the, again, it sort of goes back to what we were talking about initially, which is where most people, they have a big picture about what they want to accomplish. Again, we use the example of what we're doing, what we're doing right here. All the bits and pieces that went into getting us right here and to make this thing the success that it's going to be. There are probably tons of people who have had a broad idea and said, hey, I'd like to be able to give access to the people that we're doing and share these resources. But the big ideas are, they're not near as rare as the people who take the time to narrow them down, create small actions around them, and then focus in and say, okay, this is what I want it to look like when it's done. This is how I know it was a success. And then create actions around those things that are the most likely to end up giving you the results you're after. Doesn't mean you're going to hit it with 100% accuracy, but you're trying to narrow down as many details as you can so that if you don't hit it 100%, just like a fellow by the, said, one of my favorite quotes, aim for the moon. That way, if you fall short, you still fall among the stars. I think it was Les Brown that said that. And I think that it's a kind of a cute quote, but there's a lot of truth in that. You aim big and you try to be specific. Don't just be broad, and then you're going to find out more often than not that you're going to have done really well. So again, that's one of that's really where it starts. Everywhere starts. Doesn't matter if you're talking about wanting to get a certain result in your personal life, your professional life, start a business. Doesn't matter what the stuff is. You have to define, and I use the term define success because basically it's to say you have to have a clarity over what do you want to do. It's one thing to say, hey, I want to have an event that's, just X number of people, attend and they love it and but you got to get more specific. What's that going to look like? What would you be able to see and realize, hey, this was a success? So and it doesn't matter what it is, it's the same way. It's like when I started the website, my definition of success was very simple, and it expanded and grew. And the way that I measured that success changed over the years. It certainly has. But initially, it was the way that I would view it as a success was, first, I would get this resource off the ground. And the key thing was if one person, sent me an email back saying, hey, this was helpful, then I would feel successful. Now obviously it grew way beyond that, but that's still the way that I measure success. And now there are different moving pieces. So of course I'm measuring, the revenue, because that's what keeps things going. Newsletter subscribers and reach of the site and all these sort of things. Having a book published, that's one way that I measure the success. But it's but it starts with getting clear on what it is that you want. And then from there, the way that you can measure that thing is to turn around forward and look at what it is you want to accomplish and narrow down next actions and things of that nature. And that's where one of the things I talk about in the book is I call it the goal card system. And I think we might talk a little bit more about that if you want to, but I'm happy to go into that real quick now if you'd like, because that's really how a person, that's one tool that a person can do to measure their progress along the way. One of the things I do day to day is, as simple as it sounds, is keeping lists. I'm scratching out lists and of what I want to accomplish, and I'm just making sure that thing is right there with me. And that sounds really simple, but think about the majority of people. Again, we all have the same amount of time. Most people they have a broad idea of what they want to accomplish, and they never cross-reference it to see if they're actually getting anything done or getting the things they need done so that the bigger thing unfolds. Let's put it this way: we all kind of overthink things. The lucky few don't overthink things, but I'm certainly guilty of it. And so that's where it's so important to keep lists, to keep your goals. And the main thing is, don't just write them. I have people know goal setting doesn't work, or keeping lists doesn't work. I don't get things done. I can just about guarantee you, everybody that says that, because I've been there, I've had things that have not been accomplished. Most of the time, it's not that keeping the things in front of you don't work. It's that you didn't. It's not that the process doesn't work. It's that you didn't keep it in front of you, or you didn't commit to actually doing the things that needed done. But a lot of times, it's not that we need more instruction. It's that we need more application of whatever it is. And if something's not a particular skill set of yours, that's okay. Work with somebody that you can delegate those things out to. I think that's a really important thing too. I know when working with you guys, y'all have a great team of people that are, doing different things, and that's important. And I think sometimes in the day-to-day trenches of our lives, we lose sight of the fact that that's a tool we can all use. Is to delegate out to people who can help us.
Right. The lists, and then you mentioned the goal cards. How do you apply the goal card system one is to everyday life, and then to, let's say, larger, projects or business initiatives, or, larger initiatives essentially that we work on?
Okay, sure. So first we'll go through the goal card system. Again, these are probably for anybody that's done goal setting. Most people are going to recognize bits and pieces of this, but I always like to say they may even use something similar. So I don't want anybody and I also want to say, I always like to say personal development is a hands-on project. And so what that means basically is that if you hear something that works, try it, wonderful. If you've already got something that's working, then you just ignore what I'm talking about. Because it's not about me being right or somebody else being right. It's about us just kind of taking in ideas, using what works for us or not. So with that disclaimer, I tend to use my goal card system is basically I start with a 3x5 index card, and the reason I do that is because they're not expensive. There's really no excuse not to use them, and they're just really handy to keep around. You can keep them in your purse or your shirt pocket or whatever. So, and plus it sounds good. Goal cards system. So that's what that is. So it starts with that. But really what makes it work is the inner parts of that. So on that goal card, I don't know if you're probably not going to be able to see this, but this is kind of a blown up example. Imagine this is a 3x5 index card. Nobody needs to worry about reading what's on there. I'm going to take everybody through it, but just imagine this is the card, okay? And so the first thing that I do is in the upper, left corner, I would put my main goal or objective. And again, this is can just be really a quick sample. So using your example, questions you asked, personal, we'll just, we'll narrow it down. In other words, what we talked about before, most people would say, hey, I want to spend more time with my family. Okay, but let's try to get a little clearer. Like where do we want to, what areas do we want to spend more time with them? Do we want to make it to their sporting events more? Do we want to make it to, do we want to actually spend more time at dinner with them? Whatever. Get specific. Don't try to take it from way up here, what I call the 10,000 foot view, and bring it. Okay, then it becomes more real. That out what you want to do, and then to the right of it, on the other side, I put a date and targeted time for completion. Now, when you're talking about personal things like that, the bottom line is you don't want to measure that out 6 months because there's no sense in it. You could just say starting now, and do it. Then at the bottom is a statement of why you want to achieve the. Again, this sounds self-explanatory, but this is really what I call the statement. You write this out because when life happens really fast, you might want to spend more time with your family. You might want, to have a stronger relationship with your wife, girlfriend, or whatever, or family or friends. But when life's happening really fast, things pull you in a different direction, and that's why this why statement. If you've written it in a way, like let's say I always say, you want to write it from the heart and highly personal. The idea is that when you read this little section, it rekindles your inner motivation for why you want to put forth the effort that is necessary to accomplish it. So, in other words, it's not like you just say, I wanted my wife. Well, when you say wife, closer, our relationship will rekindle, or whatever it is. Get real specific about it so that when you read it, it clicks in your mind. Oh, I'm going to do that thing. I'm not just going to want to do it. I'm going to do it. And then really in the middle, I put in action steps, and all the other stuff is kind of, it's feel good stuff. It'll work, whatever. But without your actions, not just things you want to do, but things you are going to do, then the rest of it just doesn't matter unless you're doing those things. And this is not, and with this system, with the gold card system, you have to keep it on you because you have to do these things. If you're not an active participant, it's going to end up being what I like to call shelf help, which is basically you mean to do it, but you never do, and so you never get any results. That's just the harsh reality of it, right? So day to day, you want to put these real actions, and these things, and it could be anything from, when I say real actions, let's go back. I mean, you want to spend more time and you want to spend more time with your wife or your significant other. Well, your real actions are just, okay, at 1 o'clock, I'm going to leave work, or I'm going to be there at 1 o'clock and we're going to have lunch. It's just, this is where we're going to do it. You spell out the details and then you do it. The thing is, the next thing you do is underneath, you put another next action, and you just continue the process of next actions. And a lot of times people say, well, what happens when I run out of room on the card? Well, that's a great question. You just repeat it. You pull out another card and you just repeat it. It's simple as that. So it's just a real simple tool you take throughout your day, and it stays in your line of sight. It keeps you an active participant, and it keeps you from getting lazy on working on the things that you need to do to get the result you want to get. And I could take the exact example through business, like we said, if you wanted to, but I don't want to repeat myself unless you want me to, but it's very similar. Of course, there would be differences. I mean, let's talk about some of the differences rather. Keep in mind the parts I talked about. So all the main goal or objective stays the same. You want to be detailed in the main goal or objective. Date and targeted time for completion. That's probably going to make a little more sense depending on. That's probably going to be a little more relevant. Not that the other one's not, but in a business or professional setting, you want to give yourself a time just like you normally would. Just think of it as like a project management sheet or whatever, and the why statement. Now, depending on the size and scope of the job that you're involved with or the project. Oh, did you need to ask me something?
Yeah, I was just going to say that we are about to end in a bit, and I wanted to keep some time for a couple of questions from the online audience.
Yes, yeah, please.
So sorry to interrupt there, Josh, but your goal cards are certainly a good way to, like you mentioned, get things done. Get it accomplished, and I'm sure people who buy the book will be able to learn more and develop their goal cards. We've got a few questions coming in online. This couple of these on Twitter. I'm just going to ask two of them since we're running out of time. So the first one is, Josh, what are the best lessons learned on the road to becoming a successful speaker and author?
Oh man, so many. I would say, I think the best lesson.
Maybe you could give the best one, just one great lesson. Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you the best. I think the best lesson I learned was, it was more so with my writing. The speaking, I never really, believe it or not, I never really aspired to become a speaker or do speaking. That just kind of was a rollout. I just said yes instead of saying no. But the writing, the biggest thing was realizing that there's very few things in life is there like this magic moment where you have permission to do it, or somebody says you're good enough or whatever. A lot of times things happen, no matter what they are, because you just tried them. And the cool thing about it is when you try them, I like to say, life has an incredible way of filling in the details. The first time I wrote something, I was not a great writer. I just wrote like I would speak. Resonated with people. People liked it. Some people didn't, but people liked it. And so I did it again and did it again and did it again. And then the book grew out of that. So that was the biggest thing, was I got better at it over time, but I probably could have even accomplished more had I just realized that big barrier into growing into it, a lot of times it's self-imposed. That's not to say that I didn't need to get better over time. It's just that there's a lot of power in just trying something and not worrying about the end result, trying to do the best you can do, but get it out there and realize that that's a step. So that would be my, and I still learn that all the time,
Great. And the last question is, what's the best compliment or message that you've ever got from a fan?
Oh gosh, probably, geez. Well, a lot of different ones. I tell you, there's one fella that I'm still somewhat in touch with, who contacted me years ago, and this really wasn't even about my own writing. This was more so, well, some of it was, but for the most part, it was when I was just sharing resources when I started out, and I initially met this fella, and he was, and when I initially met him online, of course, through email, he was in a refugee camp at the time, and they had a very limited amount of time because, and also it was so long ago, but a very long to get on the internet. And he was just looking, he's going through extremely difficult times where they were living. This was a number of years ago. And he sent me an email to say, hey, I sent you other sites and I ran across your website as a resource. I just wanted to let you know that, just to thank you for putting this out there. It wasn't anything that I even wrote. It was just the very beginning, sharing. And over the years, we've kept up, and I've never met in person, but I'll get an email from him every once in a while. And it's just incredible. Now he's in computer IT of all things. And he had an opportunity to come to another country and relocate, and has just done amazing things. That to me, again, it goes back to how do you define success. That really is how I define success. The other things are important, but that is what drives me. That's really what makes me feel good when somebody says, hey, I'm going through this, and something you wrote made a difference.
That's so fantastic and inspiring, Josh. And we hope that you can continue to do this good work and inspire more and more people and help them, as you say, live by choice and not by chance. And also on a parting note, if you have a message about LitFestx, about our festival, to our viewers, that'll be fantastic.
Okay, well, I just want to thank everybody for being here. I want to, you know, hopefully, I want to, you know, like I talked about before, just keep in mind, you know, personal development, professional development, you name it, is a hands-on project like I talked about. So if you picked up some ideas, you know, take those ideas, internalize them, and try to look for ways you can apply them in your life. It'll make a big difference. And if anybody wants to, you know, drop me a message, feel free. And stay plugged into this, what you're doing right here. Stay and listen to the other speakers, and get you a little journal, get you a notebook, make notes, and don't just take it, don't just hear it. Really try to look for ways in your own life to apply it. You know, just like I always tell everybody, that's what living big's about. You know, is doing the things day to day, and then you look up and you say, how did this really cool thing happen? How did this? Well, it happened because you were in the activity. So I wish everybody all the best and many blessings. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Josh. All the best to you as well.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the opportunity. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you. Same here. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.